Hey, welcome back to Lick of the Week videos. We've been working in a series of videos concerning theory and its application to the banjo, and this is the fourth video in the series so far. And what we've done is built up a layer of information starting with just the 12 notes and the term chromatically moving from one note directly to the next, and then we explored explaining moving between the notes as half steps, and then we looked at whole tones, which means skipping over notes in the series, and then combining half steps and whole steps to explain, how we're moving around through the notes. And that's leading us up to this video, which is scales. There's different ways to express what a scale is and what it does for you musically, what its purpose is, and it could take a lot of videos to get into those explanations. But I'm going to see if I can simplify it. A scale is a way to take one note out of the 12, pick one note, and assemble 7 other notes around that note that sound good with it, that you can use to build chords. You can build chords out of scale notes, construct harmonies. There's a lot of really great things. Everything we understand about music really is based on scales. And when you say you play in a key, say I play in the key of G, let's do a song in the key of G. One of the basic building blocks for the key of G is a G scale. So basically a scale is a way to look at one note. In this case, let's use G for the example. Since we're tuned to a G chord, let's look at a G scale. So a G scale basically means that we're going to take G, the one note out of the 12, we're going to isolate it, and we're going to pick 7 notes to go along with that G note. And G can be referred to as the tonal center, which is a fancy term for G is the most important note in this series of notes, and these other notes kind of work with it, work in tandem with it to help us create music. Now there's a really important aspect to understanding a major scale, in this case G major being the note. A G major scale, all major scales have a simple formula which involves those whole steps and half steps we talked about previously in the other videos. A scale formula, and I'll put it here on the screen, a scale formula is basically using whole and half steps to identify the distances between a major scale. So let's use just the formula first for illustration. The formula will be whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. 2 wholes and a half and 3 wholes and a half. And that, again, that's the distances we're moving between notes of the scale. Because we've already identified what a whole and a half step is on the fingerboard. It's either 1 fret or 2 frets. Or musically speaking, it's going half step is chromatic, going from one note directly to the next note in the series of 12. Or you're doing whole step, which means you're skipping over some notes. So to play, in this case, a G major scale, all we really need to do is start with the G note. A major scale, if you play it in its standard form, now there's a lot of different ways to play scales. You've heard the term modes before maybe. We're not fooling with that today. We're talking about the basic major scale. Will follow this formula: whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, which means that we have to have a starting note. A major scale in its normal form always starts with the root note, or the note that it's named after. That's easy to remember. So a G scale in its normal form will always start with a G note. So let's use the open third. That's an easy, accessible note, G. Now remember, the first note of the scale is named after the root note, G, but we can't count that as going anywhere because we're just on a G note. So what we do from that note is go a whole step. So a whole step from a G would be G sharp A. So we skipped over G sharp, right? A whole step is 2 frets on your banjo, and that's 2 notes in music. So G, G sharp, A. So G to A is our first whole step. Let's continue with that formula. And I'm going to stay on the 3rd string. I can find these notes on other strings, but just for illustration purposes, I'm going to stay on the 3rd. So G to A is a whole step. Now the formula says from that note go a whole step. A sharp, B. So the first two whole steps in our scale formula for G would be G is open, nowhere, we hadn't gone anywhere. A whole step above that is A whole step above that is B. Now the formula says half step. Half step would be 1 fret, and that would be B to C. So guess what? The first section of our G scale is G, A, B, C, which is A, whole step, G, a whole step to A whole step to B, and a half step to C. Whole, half. That's pretty easy. Okay, now let's continue. Now we have 3 whole steps and a half steps to complete the scale. So we stopped on a C note. So from C, go a whole step. Well, that would be D. C, C sharp, D. Oh, okay. From D, go a whole step. D, D sharp, E. Pretty easy. Now go a whole step from E. E, next note would be F, F sharp. And then the formula says half step. A half step above F sharp would be G. Hey, wait a minute, we wound up an octave higher. This is something interesting about a scale. If you follow a normal scale like a G major scale and follow that pathway, whole, half, whole, half, you will arrive at the same note an octave higher. Now how is it you can only play basically 8 notes if you count the first and last note being the same notes? How can you reach the 12th fret on your banjo by playing 8 notes? Isn't there 12 frets here? Yeah, there is 12 frets, but you're skipping over some of the notes. So a scale will actually propel you from one note to the same note an octave higher. And again, you can find scales in different places on the fingerboard, but what you want to do is practice the scale in order, going up and going down. Even if you find the notes on other strings, the distances between a G major scale will always be the same. Whole, half, whole, half, if you play a normal G major scale. So we've done this on the 3rd string. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. Now if I want to play the same scale again staying on that string, I'll be playing the same scale forever. It'll just be 1 octave higher. G, A, B, C, D, E. Of course I'm going to run out of frets. E, F sharp, and G. But you know, if I had a fingerboard that went from here to my neighbor's house, which would be 300-400 feet, it would be the same scale forever and ever. Always a normal G major scale would look just like that. Now if I wanted to play that scale across different strings, guess what? I could play the open 3rd as my G note, then a whole step would be that A note, but instead of going to the 3rd string at the 4th fret for my B, hey, that's the same note as my open 2nd. G, A, B, then C. Before we found C here, but a C is a C if it's the right note. Remember too, when you're playing these scales, to stay in the same octave. Don't jump from a low C to a C 2 octaves higher. You want to stay in order. So knowing that information, I could play the G major scale on the 3rd string, or I could move over to the adjacent strings to find the notes I need. G, A, B, C. Open 1st is D. E would be the 2nd fret, F sharp, and G. So what you're going to find is there's a lot of different pathways, I call them, or routes, to find the exact same notes. The notes don't have to be played on one string. You can find the notes on other strings, open or fretted. But the goal is here to understand this video, the typical major scale, using G for the example, follows the pathway whole, half, whole, half. So play around with that, and then the next video we'll delve into a little deeper into exactly what a scale is doing for us musically. I appreciate you watching. Thanks.